welcome back to Somewhere to Start. In front of me, I have this very unique F major pentatonic scale. Now, the fun thing about this one is there's a couple additional notes on here that wouldn't be part of that F major pentatonic. The F major pentatonic consists of F, G, A, C, D, and then it repeats again. F, G, A, C, D. Now, the extra two notes you have in there, you have B flat and E, which, especially that E, sound uncharacteristic for this scale if you were going to try to play a little bit more chords. Now, already you can have fun with the bass of this scale because you have an octave for each note in the scale. You have F3 to F4, G3 to G4, A3 to A4, C4 to C5, D4 to D5. Now, in that bass scale already, ignoring the other two notes, you have tons of consonants in there, tons of really nice open chords. Starting at the bottom there, you have A and D, nice perfect fourth, C and F, another perfect fourth, D, G, another perfect fourth, F, A is a major third, G to C, perfect fourth, A to D, another perfect fourth, which gives a really nice movement if you're trying to pluck two notes at the same time. Even if you were going for three, you get these really nice chords in there that stack really nicely. Now, these other two notes I'd been ignoring for a minute, I would use them more as passing tones and things like that. Although the B flat harmonizes nicely with either F, because you could use it as a perfect fourth or a perfect fifth. It will stack well in terms of a chord. You can use it either against the D with the G, kind of a thing. Because of placement, though, you can't really grab the chords the way you would if it was just sitting on top. So you can kind of get two notes. I kind of like that the G minor inversion right here, which is G, B flat, D. Which you can do in the inversion there, but you'd have to pluck it, which is only mildly inconvenient. Now, that E you have underneath as well, I would use it much more as a passing tone to that F. But it does sit nice against both A's, the perfect fourth, or as the perfect fifth. Now, you can also use it again, kind of arpeggiated, to get that nice C major chord right there. But because of where it's located, you can't do a ton with it. You don't have that same versatility as if it were a top note. But I feel if it were a top note and it's in this scale, it would distract from the way the rest of the scale flows. There's just something about these set of notes here that sit really nicely, good range from low to high, and a lot of good intervals that are fun for, a little bit more meditative style playing or even more fast-paced playing. Or like I said, with the fast playing. And it just seems to fit really well in a diverse grouping of contexts. Now, from a player standpoint, I'm probably most likely to utilize many of the chords up top and how they flow. The bottom notes, I definitely use them more passing. This G is probably the one I'd use the most in a chord because it's easy to pluck either the fourth or the fifth. And even that octave right there. You can get a nice chord with that G. The E, like I said, really that kind of passing feel is the best way to use it in my opinion. Sort of the same thing with the B flat, although I find I would personally use it a lot less because my right hand dominant. I like having access to the ding, so I'd be less likely to try to flip underneath to grab that bottom note. And now kind of moving into a little bit more of a nitty gritty section with this. This pan will make an excellent addition to the one you've already got. I think the grouping of notes you have, almost all of them fall between notes on this scale. So if you wanted to get a little bit more chromatic with your playing, you have that ability to do so. And I think the range is very similar. I think the highest note on that other pan you have is a D flat 5, if I remember correctly. Now, ones with bottom notes like this, can't really sit and play it on a stand. You're going to mute at least one of the notes just a little bit, even if they're not touching the stand itself. You really got to cradle it with, on your legs or have something that's very narrow for it to sit on so that you can get your full sustain out of everything. Difficult thing with the bottom notes is just hitting them so you can get them to sing. I've got them placed as comfortably as I think I could place them, because if you have instead of being perfectly centered, just a slight rotation where that A is. I think it flows relatively nicely with where everything would sit on the scale. I like that I can comfortably grab the E and the F right here. If I wanted to, I can grab the F and the B flat, which are probably the only times I would personally use that B flat. And that G is in a great spot that I can just comfortably grab it with ease. So this was quite a fun pan to work on. I was loving that you got some delicate coloring of purple and stuff like that in there that comes through. You can get some different colors in the nitride if you play with the temperament post nitride, right? And it all came together quite nicely. I'm really loving the way everything sits and the way everything resonates. One of the things I usually stray away from with bottom notes is the more notes you add to a pan in general, the less everything is going to sustain. A little bit each time, not anything drastic with each individual note, but you notice the difference of 8 notes on a bottom shell as opposed to 2 or 3. And you run a much higher risk the more notes you have of a little bit of crosstalk. You're always going to get that with any pan or try pretty much any instrument, like keyboard instrument or steel pan, hand pan, things like that, where if you play one note, you're going to get a little bit of sympathetic vibration on another. And that's just shared harmonics and things like that are always going to do that. So you got things, for instance, like this F3. That harmonic is F4, which is right there. And that harmonic is C5, which is right there. So because this pan has a lot of consonants and perfect fourths and perfect fifths in it, they also have a ton of notes that share harmonics. And so that makes certain things with the shaping area is a little bit more difficult. Nothing crazy, not the end of the world, but something you have to pay attention for when you do your layouts and stuff like that. But I'm happy that the sustain with everything is all very similar. I love that change in timbre. Um, so in the lower notes, especially that F3 and that G3, you get this really nice warm tone to it. Now that A and that C, that D starts to get a little bright. That A and that C are kind of between where that D, E, F, and G start to get a little bit brighter. So that A, B flat, and C, they kind of sit right. They're not quite as warm and dark as the really low notes here, but they don't have that same brightness yet. Now, once you shift into the A, C, and D up there, they start to get this really bright texture to them. And I love the way those sing and the way those cut. Usually everything, once you kind of get to that A and above, you start to get this little bit of a timbre difference again, where it's just so bright and almost crystal-like in the way I would think of it. And because of those different registers, you can have a lot of fun with 2 or 3 voices, you can call it. So like so what I meant by that, 2 different voices, playing one hand or mostly in one register and the other hand in another. So you get 2 different melody lines happening at the same time. It's kind of like how you add a soprano and a bass. You know, you got that melody and you got that bass line to it. You can kind of have fun with having 2 different moving lines. And the registers sound totally different, which is why I love pans that have a very wide grouping of notes, where other pans you'd have more of a traditional scale where it'll basically be notes within this A and this A kind of deal. So your scope is much more limited, even if you have another bass note. Uh, so this you kind of extend. You have much more than an octave range for playable notes that kind of fit between. And because of that range, you get to kind of have a lot more fun with it. And because the intervals are so nicely placed, it's not as stressful trying to navigate every individual note like if it were a piano. But anyway, that was somewhere to start on this beautiful F major pentatonic. Hope you enjoyed it. Can't wait to see how you interpret this pan.